Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is what's hot in Dynamics. You're now joining Merlin Schweiger, Liz McGlennon, and Ashley Steiner.
So Liz, you're in Florida.
Yes.
Was that too awkward?
Florida. The ocean
It's
is right
sunny.
there. Yeah, it's sunny. It's going to be like 68 today.
So jealous.
Kind of chilly.
Yeah. Snow 70.
I hadn't
mean-
left my house in like 3 days. I know that seems so bad, but like, who wants to go outside when it's so cold? I went out like and I grabbed breakfast on Friday mornings. So I went out and got breakfast, and like I was like, I don't think I've been out here since Tuesday when I put my garbage bin away.
Wow.
It's just cold. Like, who wants
Yeah,
to go
but-
outside in the winter?
But does that make you feel weird to
No, I love my house. I love staying inside. I love my
I like my house too, but I feel like when I get to like day 2 of like never breathing outside air, I'm just like, something's wrong. I need to just go outside, even if it's only for like 3 minutes to like put some trash in the trash can in the alley or something. Like I need to get out of the house about daily, or I feel weird. I don't know.
I don't know if I have the same issue.
Yeah,
Like maybe if it was like a week.
I can go like a day or two, but I mean, I have to walk the dogs. So like, I don't really skip more than a day or two of that anyway. So like, I have to be outside. But I think it's more just like,
In the summer, I'm like that.
got to get outside.
The weather is so nice in the summer. It's like, if you're not outside, how can you? Because then in the winter, I know I don't go out as often. I know I don't go out as like, it's miserable outside right now. It's cloudy and windy and cold.
I thought
It's
it got
awful.
warmer.
Oh, it did, but now it's a
Yeah.
winter storm today.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
It
probably
might
headed
get
my
4
way.
inches of snow here.
well, I'm glad I'm
Well,
here.
hopefully- I was like, yeah, because like all the snow melted. Like my grass
Yeah,
isn't even
so-
covered
Oh,
with
yeah.
snow anymore. And so like I went outside this morning. I didn't even put a jacket on. I just have a sweatshirt on. And I was like, okay, it's a little too cold for just a sweatshirt because it was windy too.
Yeah.
So winter's miserable.
That's why I
It's not
left.
that bad. It's not that bad.
We don't all have that luxury, Liz, where we can just decide on a Saturday to leave for 2 weeks.
We might be staying a third week. We don't know yet.
I'm so
TBD.
jealous. Like literally, I cannot even express how jealous I am that you
I'm gonna
just
go to the beach this afternoon.
send us a picture of the water.
Sure.
It's a hard life.
Mhm.
We go to Arizona in a couple weeks, but there's no
That'll
beach
be
or water
warm.
there.
At least it'll be warm. I can't complain too much. I was just in Florida over Christmas, so I got my beach time in.
I wonder if that's like every person that lives like in the north, like north of something, they like just start to look forward to going south for the winter, at least like even for just like a couple days. Like I wonder if people listening to this that like live in like Maine or something, or you know, I don't know, somewhere where it's cold like the Midwest, are like, oh man, I know exactly what they're talking about, because everyone goes south for a week at least in the winter.
I would
Yeah.
imagine so. If you can get away, you'd want to.
If you can do it, yeah, why not? Although I do feel like it makes me a little bit weaker when I come back.
Oh,
You know,
for
like
sure.
if it's been cold for a while, you're like, you know, your body adapts and you're like, yeah, whatever. It's, 25 degrees. It's fine. I'll put on my light jacket. And then you go somewhere warm and you come back and you're like, it's 25. Like I need every jacket that I own because now
Yeah,
it's
like,
like,
I'm already wearing my puffy on the beach at night, and it's like in the 50s, and I'd be wearing that at like 30 degrees back home. So like I'm already totally adapted to. But it's like when I got here, I thought it was really hot too. I was like, this is too hot, because it was
I
like
have that
70 and
problem.
humid. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have that
really
problem when I go to Arizona. Like anything over 80 degrees, I'm like, oh my God, it's so hot. How do people live here? And when I lived in Arizona, like 105 was like the perfect temperature. Like I loved 105.
That's toasty.
But
was just
like
a dry
now,
heat.
I think I would literally die. Like I think I would melt if it was 105 degrees. So it definitely has an effect on you. But you're wearing your puffy jacket at 50 degrees. I
They were
didn't
like
pull out my
25
real-
mile per hour winds.
Oh, okay. Then
So
That's
that was
different.
it was really windy and cold.
because I didn't even pull out my real winter jacket until it got into the single digits this year. I was wearing a light one up until then.
uh-huh.
Now the heavy one is just the only one that gets worn.
You get strong. You get strong in the winter in the Midwest.
Or you just pack on a few extra pounds to keep you insulated.
Or that. It works great.
So Merlin, you're going to teach us what an interest-bearing loan is. Is that what I understand from today?
Yes, that is what you understand from today. And I know that everyone's very excited about this topic because
I'm sure everyone just decided to stop listening right now.
Everybody's like, oh, interest-bearing loans. Well, I think
I'm ready to fall asleep. We haven't even started talking about it yet.
So first, this is not going to be about the loans themselves. This is going to be about a Power App scenario and solution to track the loans. The reason that it's a Power App scenario is because, at least as far as I understand, there isn't really a good way to do this in normal like accounting software. I don't know, Business Central, GP, whatever. Like they don't have any way to do this. So the business case is have a customer and they borrow money from a bank. And then, I don't know, they do stuff with that money and then they have to like keep track of all of the loans that they've taken from the bank and the interest rates on all the loans and how much interest they're accruing on each loan and when they're making payments to the loans, right? So they like want to keep track of all the financial details of all these loans that they're taking out, but they don't really have anywhere to do that today. So they've been doing it in a spreadsheet. Each little tab on the spreadsheet is a different loan, put all the different dates for like all the months that they're going to like send payments or accrue interest. And then they've got all these columns with like all this math happening. It's like, from a reporting perspective, it's kind of a nightmare because now you've just got all this stuff in spreadsheets, right? So enter Power Apps. And the reason that I like this as a use case, the reason that I wanted to talk about it is because I feel like often in the Power Platform community, like most of the Power Apps people, like us, are CRM people. So we come at Power Apps from like a CRM perspective. We're like, oh, well, I have a salesperson and they need a Power App, or I have, you know, a field service person and they need a Power App. And we're always kind of coming at it from the like customer side and not so much from the financial side. So that's why I thought this was interesting, is because it's purely financial. Like there's no interaction with salespeople. Like the users of this app are purely in the finance department, but it's still a good use case.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be my first question, is who's using it. So if I go, it's not that I'm taking a loan, it's that like a business is taking a loan.
Right.
And so as the business, you want to track, not the bank wants to track. I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand who's the end user.
Mm-hmm. So the end user is the business that is borrowing the money. And I don't know, they're like a financial services company. So I assume that they're like borrowing money and then making that money do work and then making money on that money so that they can pay back the money that they borrowed. I have no idea. It's financial shell game as far as I know. But they have like a lot of these different loans. And so like in any given month, they might open up a new loan. And let's say that loan is for $1 million and it's over a 4-year term. And so they need to keep track of, okay, like today we took out this loan for $1 million. It's going to come due in 4 years. Like they build out the full like payment schedule. So we're going to pay $100,000 on it in April, and then we're going to pay another $50,000 in August, and then we're going to pay $150,000 in October or something. And so they like lay out how they're going to pay it back and the whole term and the various interest rates. And the bank is like, okay, well, we'll give you a fixed rate on this loan, but then we've got all these variable rates that also apply. And so you're going to accrue interest with all of these various rates. And so at least in their situation, they have like up to 4 different rates on one loan. 3 of those rates apply to all of the loans from that same bank, and only 1 of the rates applies to just this loan. So they have to keep track of the rate on this loan, but then the 3 other rates that apply to all of the loans. And today, if one of those rates changes, like the bank calls and says, all right, by the way, next month, we're going to change this rate from X to Y. Now they have to go through all of their different loans and say, okay, if this one changes to Y, this one changes to Y, this one changes to Y on this date in a little spreadsheet. And so I wanted to try to build an app that made it easier to manage all of this and still get reports out of it and be like somewhat useful for them more so than a spreadsheet. So any other questions on what I'm talking about before I talk about the app?
No,
talk about the solution.
I was gonna say, it just sounds like an Excel nightmare.
Yes, I think it was an Excel nightmare. So So the app, it's all a model driven app, but there are no dynamics components at all. I think legitimately this may be the first project that I've ever done where there was like no dynamics module installed in Dataverse. It's just pure raw Dataverse. There's even though we're only tracking for one bank right now, I did make sure that there was like a bank relationship so that if they expand to additional banks that they want to track in the future, they can. The bank has rates, like rate types that are associated to it, and then individual rates. And each rate runs for like a specific date range. So maybe from January of 2019 until July of 2020, it was this. And then it changed in July 2020 to this, and then it changed to this so that they get like accurate historical reporting and tracking. But then all of those different rates with the date ranges roll up into this type, and then the type is associated with the bank, and then I associate that type to a loan. So if that particular rate goes with, say, all of the loans that they have, then I just associate that rate type with all of them. If they, for some reason, had a loan that didn't have one of those rates, and they just wouldn't associate it. So that's a many-to-many relationship. And then on the loan itself, you put in like, here's what the principal was, here's the fixed rate just for this loan, and like, here are the start and end dates. And then we've actually built out this. So I didn't build this stuff. One of my coworkers built it. And I got to say, he did some amazing stuff in Power Automate, but he built a bunch of flows that like builds out the full amortization schedule. So it's like you put in the principal and the term, and then this flow goes through and makes a little schedule record for every month, for all of the months for like all 5 years of the loan. And then we made that an editable grid so that they can go in and say, okay, this month we're going to pay this much, this month we're going to pay this much, this month we're going to pay this much. And once they put all the payments in, then they hit another button. And now this flow process goes through and calculates all of the interest that they're going to pay on all of these months through the entire term of the loan from start to finish.
What happens if the rate changes?
Great question. So there's another process. So the reason that we're building it all out up front is because essentially what they're doing today, they want to be able to see like, okay, in 2025, we're still going to be paying on these 5 loans, and this is how much interest we're going to accrue on each of them, right? They want to be able to see that. But the rate might change between now and then. So if the rate changes, then we've got another automated process that goes back and looks for all of the loans that have that particular rate. And then it recalculates what the new interest amount is just for that rate, because all of the interest transactions are sort of calculated separately, one per rate. And so now I can go back and say, this rate changed. So here's what my new interest amounts look like. And then I compare that with the transaction that's already there and create a correction. So if the rate goes up, then the correction is going to be a positive amount because they're going to pay more interest. If the rate goes down, the correction is going to be negative because now they're paying less interest on that loan. And so now, not only can they see the full schedule of the loan, but they can also see like the changes and variations throughout and like when everything got changed or corrected when different rates changed. Sort of tying all of this together, there's Power BI reports that we're still working on to like show all of this data and aggregate it. And then we're also building an automated integration back into their ERP system, which is GP, to just post all of this stuff on a monthly basis into their general ledger instead of all the like manual data entry they were doing before. So
I'm guessing the benefit is that you know how much interest you're paying based on what your monthly payment's going to be, right? That's the whole point of this. I'm trying to really understand something that I know nothing about.
Well, and an integration to ERP and reporting through Power BI too, because like neither of those things would have been possible with a spreadsheet or as good with a spreadsheet.
Right. So they had like some reports in the spreadsheet, but obviously there were kind of a lot of like manual work and like VLOOKUPs and stuff to try to make them function. And then everything going into GP was just manual entry. So like every month they had to like, a person had to go and look and make sure that the numbers were right and then add the stuff up and then put it into the general ledger. And so now like that'll be all automated.
So do you know how much time they're saving things? I feel like you've removed manual entry and hopefully the app is easier to use than the spreadsheet, right? So like just from that perspective, they should be saving time.
Mm-hmm. So they're going to save time in a few different areas, and we haven't actually quantified it. Probably should have. So when they create a new loan, I think they'll probably save 20 minutes per new loan, because instead of having to build the table out manually, or like copy and paste from somewhere else and then change the numbers. It's just like put in the information, push the button to generate the schedule, now put in the payments, push the button to do the amortization, and like walk away from it. And then they're also going to save a bunch of time on that monthly or even in some cases daily basis, because they've got some loans that instead of being like a fixed amount or more like a line of credit, so it's like a variable rate loan. And that one they're actually posting transactions for daily. So they're going into the spreadsheet and you're like, okay, well, today we borrowed this much off of it, and then we paid this much. And so now our interest is this. And so now I need to go enter that. So having all those transactions pushing into ERP automatically is probably going to save like at least 10 or 15 minutes a day, and then another probably a couple of hours a month at month end to go through and put all those transactions in for the loans on a monthly basis.
I was gonna say, it's interesting to me. I'm not an ERP person, so I guess maybe I shouldn't be surprised by this, but like, how is this not an ERP thing already? Does this not like typical?
Right. I apparently not.
So why
I
do
admit,
they care about this, but other organizations don't?
so I think it's because of the sort of business that they do. So I get the impression that most companies aren't dabbling in debt sort of in this degree. Like I think that this organization's like business, like a lot of their business relies on taking and managing debt. So they're like managing millions of dollars of debt at any given moment and kind of like juggling these numbers around. I don't think that that's very common. Like if you had a business and you needed a loan, you would just get a loan and you would only have to keep track of that one loan. You're not going to be managing like 30, right?
Right.
So I don't think it's actually that common. I was also surprised that there was no like out of the box kind of ERP solution for this. But again, I think that's because I'm coming from this CRM perspective of like, well, ERP does everything that's finance and like it just all happens out of the box and you never like worry about it. And it's only over here on the CRM side that you've got like crazy use cases that you need Power Apps for. And I don't know, that's why I found this one interesting.
Well, no offense, but they are using GP, right? And I know that there's no like additional changes, right? Coming to, I mean, is there perhaps like another ERP like FSCM, FNCM? Oh my gosh, I'm trying to get used to it. Or Business Central or like, Oracle or something like that. I wonder if a larger one would do it.
I guess I don't know. It didn't sound like there was anything in Business Central that would meet the use case either, because I know that was part of the discussion. Is like, oh, well, maybe if you move from GP to Business Central, then it'll solve the problem. But I guess not.
If there's an ERP person listening to this, comment and tell us if there's an ERP version that's not in GP, but like it's a different product.
I think we're definitely showing like where our weakness is here is once things transition to ERP. So we need some help on that.
Yeah, it's true. So there may very well be something like in FNSCM/FNO/AX.
We can't even get the name right.
That will handle this. I mean, for this organization, a product that size would have been overkill.
Well, and like Power Apps licensing is so cheap. So like if they re-implementation or to move from GP to, I'm just gonna call it FNO, I'm not even gonna try, is like really expensive. So like I'm sure if this was the only gap that they had, like it's so much more affordable to go with the Power Apps route.
Yep.
And I feel like that was the purpose of Power Apps, right? Was to bridge the gap on some of these things so that you didn't have to do these re-implementations of ERP or even a CRM system.
Yeah.
If you just needed this one little area fixed, I mean, that's kind of the purpose. And it's a cool, unique situation, I guess I would say, Marilyn, like when you brought it up and I was like, oh, sounds really interesting. It actually is like what you're solving for and like how you're solving it is actually pretty fascinating. I can't say that I would go learn stuff about interest-bearing loans at this point, but I'm intrigued by how you solved the problem.
Like I said, Ashley, I didn't know anything about them before I started into this project either, but after
I Googled it.
After I looked through the spreadsheet, I was like, okay, this is just a spreadsheet. Like I can fix this with a Power App. That's no problem. I can make this better. And I feel like, that's why it was interesting to me, is because it's not kind of a classic use case. It fits into some other area of the business that like finance, like I rarely even think about finance areas of businesses, but it's a perfect stopgap. They can use Power Apps licensing the project is like around 200 hours worth of work. So like not tiny and insignificant, but not like huge or overwhelming. And for the like time savings and like increased accuracy on data entry, it's a lot harder to just like accidentally fat finger some data that isn't editable to you than it is in a spreadsheet. Like, oops, I accidentally put a 9 in there and I didn't know it. Like,
Ruined
nobody's ever going to
everything.
find out. Like,
When I think that you
so
can really, that's a situation where you can really easily calculate the ROI too. So like,
yeah,
fine, an Excel spreadsheet was free, but like think of the time, the manual effort, figuring that out. Like if you actually did like a user study on it, I think you could find it pretty easily and justify the cost.
yeah. See, that's why I thought it was a cool use case.
Merlin, was there anything that they wanted or you thought you guys wanted to do that you weren't able to do? Like, did anything get cut from scope, or did you like find anything that was challenging and kind of unsolvable within the tool set or their budget?
There were a few things where like there were a few of the math operations because there's a lot of like trolling through a lot of different records and like aggregating and doing a bunch of math. But for most of that stuff, like we were able to find workarounds with like just adding extra fields to keep track of things in the meantime. So
So kind of like fields that they aren't using, but you're just storing numbers to make that whole
right,
calculation work.
right. There were a couple of spots where Mike, who like was doing all of this magic and Power Automate, was like, actually, I decided to create like a roll-up field or a calculated field on the page, and then I can use that value in the Power Automate process instead of trying to have Power Automate do the math. Because as I understand it, having Power Automate like do all of this math was like, well, you create a variable, and you create another variable, and you create another variable, and it's like very onerous to just like do a bunch of math. So in some cases, it was easier just to be like, here's a roll-up field, here's a calculated field, and then use those values in the automated process. But we haven't encountered in building out the entire app, like all of it is using out of the box tools. There's no custom code anywhere. It's all Power Apps and Power Automate doing all the work.
I will say it's more interesting than I thought it was going to be, Marlon.
Well, I'm glad that I could find something that was interesting.
Do you have any other like projects or things coming up that are unique situations, or can you think of something that?
I guess the only other one that I can think of offhand that's sort of similar, because it's again more like an ERP use case, was for commissions tracking. And I know that there are a number of ISV solutions that do commissions tracking, but it seems like in most cases it's like $8 per user per month or something to keep track of your commissions by some of these tools. And I could spend $5 on the per app license in Power Apps and maybe get the same stuff. Obviously, you got to build it, but your ongoing licensing is a little bit lower. That one hasn't actually closed yet, so I haven't built it yet.
Interesting. Yeah, because I always say that's commissions. People are surprised that CRM doesn't do commissions, and I'm like, well, think of who's using CRM and accidentally having access or something to, you know what I mean? It's pretty sensitive information, but that's one that I always get everywhere I've ever worked. They've wanted a commission type tool. So I guess I've never thought to do it in a Power App.
Yeah, you can do it all in Power App. And I mean, you can still obviously keep your data in Dataverse because it's a convenient place to keep data, but then you could, for anything you don't want to keep there or that's already available in ERP, just read it out of ERP and read this out of CRM and mash it all together. And here's your report. Just go into your app. You want to know how much you're making this month? Just open your app on your phone and be like, that's how much I'm making this month.
I've always heard that as like, I'm trying to think of who did that, like a few years back, like around user adoption for salespeople. Like there was actually an organization that I saw that estimated the commission on a deal, like on an opportunity to like motivate them to keep it up to date, because it would forecast out their commission on a per opportunity basis. So like that's always something I've heard talked about from like a user adoption tactic perspective. But I mean, that would be a lot to build in depending on how complex your commissions calculations are.
I might actually steal that. I kind of like that idea, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, it's old. I'm trying to remember when it was like 3 to 5 years ago, but I saw a company doing that and it worked very well. Like it really did drive sales usage of the system. They just put it in a footer. Like they couldn't change. Like it was all based on other things they were
Mhm.
inputting, but like it was just
Sure.
yeah, it was a forecast.
That's cool.
Makes sense. Like, oh, I've kept my data up to date. Now I can see how much my check's going to be.
Right. Who doesn't want to know that?
Yeah.
And not do like a bunch of manual calculations on the
Right.
side.
Right.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. I'm totally stealing that one. In a
Go
couple
for it.
months, I'll give you guys an update on it.
Great.
Sounds great. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Anything else, Marilyn, that you learned on that project?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, it's been a really interesting use case. It's all using out of the box stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing it go live.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, Marilyn. I hope
Sure.
everyone else gains some value out of that too and can come up with some pretty cool scenarios. If you have any, share them with the comments. We'd love to see and hear what you guys are working on.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hot Dish podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at dynamicshotdish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.